So I got me a new trailer puller. So it's an 80 square headlight K30. It's an old fire truck. That's where the decal used to be. So it's an actual cabin chassis truck. It's not an actual dually. So it has the narrow rear end. It's only maybe like 4 or 5 inches wider than a regular pickup. It's very rusty, but I didn't buy it because it looked good. I bought it because they're virtually indestructible. I don't like this bed at all. We're going to be changing beds. Got all the dually simulators on it. Has brand new tires on it. The exhaust is completely roached. You can see it's collapsing in on itself right there. This thing has got a stack of springs like you wouldn't believe in the back. And in the front. The big sway bar. It's way bigger than the ones you see on the 3/4 tons. It's got the wrong bumper on it. This is an 80s bumper. It should, at least I assume, have a 70s bumper. The frame horns are different where the bumpers mount. That's why this bumper is completely not attached correctly. So I do have a bumper we can put on this at some point. I'm not sure if this is an aftermarket grill. I'm not very familiar with the 80 square headlights. I mean, these trucks are really hard to find around here. You don't see them ever. You can see that the hood's kind of not sitting where it's supposed to. You just don't see this front end set up very often. And this truck's had a hard life. So I'm not sure if that's the original grill or not. If that's like an up-level grill or if that's an aftermarket or what. So if you know what that grill's from, let me know. But honestly, I'm not even sure I really like the square headlight setup. I don't like how it sticks out off the front of the truck like this. I think I would probably like it more if the hood lined up correctly, but I don't know. We'll see once we get the regular bumper on it if I like it or not. That's the big ticket item there. We've got a Dana 60 in the front, which is obviously it's what you're supposed to have, but you never know. I've seen these before with all kinds of stuff in them. I had to put a tie rod across the front of it. This side of the tie rod was about to completely delete itself, and I discovered it would be just easier to put a whole tie rod on than try to get that side to unscrew off of it. I haven't got the steering stabilizer back on it yet. It was completely seized up too, so we're going one step at a time. This project kind of got started and then stuff came up and it didn't allow me to continue, so it needs brakes badly. That's why this side doesn't have the simulator on it. It's because I just finished putting brakes on this side of it. Next I gotta do the other side of the front, and then the previous owner just had the rear line pinched off, so it has no rear brakes, and I'm sure that the wheel cylinders are probably either leaking or the bleeders are going to twist off. So we're just going to go ahead and pull the drums off of it and go all across the back. But I really hate this bed. I hate the fact it doesn't have stake pockets or rails I can hook straps to. I don't like it doesn't have a gooseneck ball. I don't like how they torched a hole in it and stuffed the filler neck up to it. And they did that because the filler neck mount rotted out. But I don't like how they've got the gas tank kind of jerry-rigged in here. They don't have the mounts on the frame like they're supposed to. And it's just kind of held in here with duct tape and baling wire, and there's a ratchet strap involved. But I've got 2 tanks with all the mounting hardware, all the factory lines and everything, so we can go all the way through it, put dual tanks on it with all factory hardware. One of the reasons I bought this truck, and I know this is going to sound crazy, but he already had put in a full LMC set of door panels, recovered the seat, carpet. It's got one of those dash pads, cheap dash pads that doesn't fit right, which will be, it is what it is. It's better than a full, blown up dash like a lot of these have. Ignore all the stuff that's in here. I haven't quite got organized yet. But being a fire truck, it's relatively low miles. We got full instrumentation along with the tack. The tack actually works, which is unbelievable on these things. They never work. Somebody did chop up the dash and put an aftermarket CD player in it. But you know, the speaker is right there. That's the only speaker it has. So you know, that was real smart of them. Let's put a great stereo in with half of a speaker. But our windshield washer pump has been moved to here. Not really sure what that is. I think this has got the piston style pump on the wiper motor. I assume they quit working and they put an inline washer pump. It's kind of a cool setup, but wish they hadn't drilled a bunch of holes. We got random lights in the dash. You know, we got random hooks in the back. Looks like at one point it may have had a headliner in it. So we've got the hole here where it had the spotlight, which I think I have a spotlight, so we may put that back on it. But these door panels aren't cheap, and neither is this carpet kit, the lower door carpets and all that. Getting the seat recovered. Seat's really cushy. It's nice. It doesn't have any holes in it. I mean, it's not perfect in there. I mean, there's kind of a blob of something material there, but it's better than you get in a lot of these. Unfortunately, it is an automatic. I really was looking for a stick truck, but this is what you can find. In my area, these things are scarce as hen's teeth. It's hard enough to find a 3/4 ton four-wheel drive or a half-ton four-wheel drive, let alone a dually. Weirdly enough, it has an inside hood release. Must be something to do with being a fire truck. And then we've got the outside hood release too. But when I went to get this truck, there was only 2 available when I started looking for one of these. One of them was like $14,000 and was pristine, and it's kind of outside of what I wanted to spend, and I don't really want a nice truck. Every time I have a nice truck, something happens to it. You know, last nice truck I had, a tree fell on it. So we're gonna go with junk. Nothing ever happens to junk. So this is another reason I bought it. This truck's a big block truck. Originally it was a 400 small block because you could not order a big block in a four-wheel drive. You could not order a big block four-wheel drive in the early part of the 70s. At some point that did change into the 80s. You definitely could in the 80s. I don't know when it changed, but this truck, according to the VIN, was a 400. This motor's been in here for a long time, from what I would say, judging by how the headers have rusted out. And it's got headers on it, but the really cool part about this motor is this isn't your typical smogger 80s big block. This is an LS5 out of a 72 Impala. So this thing is got the big oval port heads on it. It's got 049 heads on it. I just put valve cover gaskets in it because it was leaking oil faster than you could pour it in. And that's when I discovered that it wasn't a peanut port 454, because I looked down and saw the casting number and the date codes and thought, man, that's really weird. Shouldn't have those on that. So I started looking around, and she's not super, you know, low miles. You can tell it's got some miles on it, but it's still a quadrajet. Still got the low profile intake on it for a car. You know, it's pretty stock. Fuel system's all botched up. Ignore that. Just ignore all of that. But it does run. Also has a brand new Optima red top. You know, those are like $280, $300. So, you know, pretty quickly between the door panels and everything, this truck really didn't cost that much if you break down the parts cost. And I know a good set of 049 heads is worth quite a bit. 79 was the last year for the full-time four-wheel drive. So all trucks in 80 get the 205 transfer case, the gear drive transfer case. From half tons to dualies, it's all the same transfer case. Where the connector for the transmission and transfer case is, there's a different spline count on those between 4 speeds and automatics and half tons and dualies. There's some variations there, but all 80s have 205 cases. Previously, an automatic truck at 79 and older should have been a full-time four-wheel drive or all-wheel drive truck. The 205 is a part-time case. So, but anyway, that's not why we're here. This does have an electric fuel pump somebody's put on it. run pretty good, really. We actually only have, I believe, actually 99,900 miles. It drives like 100,000 miles, not like 300,000 miles. It has had a rough life though. So the plan for this truck is to put a different bed on it. We may build a custom bed, unless I find there's a good deal on something, but I'm thinking we're just going to build a custom bed for it. Custom front bumper, most likely. We may put the stock bumper on it temporarily that that one I said I've got, just because it doesn't have a rear bumper, which I hate. I hate not having a rear bumper. So we're gonna put a bumper on it for sure, probably a custom one. If possible, we're gonna do a DMI cushion bumper. I may have to find one of those though. I don't know if I've got one right now or not. I used to have one laying around somewhere. But we're gonna delete the bed, custom front bumper. I want to put a winch on the front and a winch on the back. Possibly in the bed area, I may or may not have a Holmes 440 wrecker unit. So I don't know what we're gonna do. But this is going to be the tractor recovery truck. It will be set up to recover anything we possibly need. I want to obviously have a gooseneck hitch so we can pull the trailer. Like I said, I want some winches so we can use it to pull stuff around, drag stuff around when they don't run, don't roll, whatever. I keep getting in situations where I really need more than just come along and some chains. So it's be really useful that way. This truck has 456 gears, so we can turn 3,500 RPM at 60. So that's really not feasible for daily driving by any means. So I think we're probably going to put a 4L80 in it. I might put a stick in it. I don't know. Probably depends on which one I decide is more work. But the 4L80 would be really nice. Get a standalone controller for it and go that way. But I think that would, either way, going to a 5-speed stick or a 4-speed automatic where I have an overdrive is going to be the best way to accomplish less RPM. If I go to 410s or 373s, it doesn't drop the RPM that much compared to what an overdrive would drop it. And so the cost of putting new gears in the front of the 60 or finding a set of 373 gears for the 60 and finding a 373 gear set for the 14 bolt, because since it's a cabin chassis, it has a 14 bolt rear end. But by the time we find a gear set for both of them, and probably while it's in there, it's going to get lockers and stuff. So if it by the time I'm done spending all that money, I can buy a brand new 4L80 that's rebuilt to drop in this thing. And the 4L80 shouldn't be any problem to get hooked up to a 205 transfer case. I'm sure we'll have to recut the drive shafts, and then that should be basically it. We're gonna need a lot bigger transmission coolers. This truck obviously never did any major towing in its life because it was, like I said, it's a fire truck. So it would have had a spray unit up here for grass fires. It would have had a big bumper with all that on the front of it. And then, and you can tell underneath they've done some creative cleaning up the frame rails so they could fit their sprayer unit and hose reel and all that up in the front of it. And then it would have had a big tank on the back of it with a couple little gas motors, or maybe just one gas motor and a big pump. And then it would add other sprayers, nozzles all over it for spraying down grass fires. That's why I assume the truck is an automatic, is because you could have thrown anybody in it. They could have rushed out, and it's probably a volunteer fire department back in the day. You could have just rushed out, put out the fire, and you wouldn't have had to worry about, oh, can this guy drive a stick? Does the PTO, all that stuff, does he know how to use it? But anyway, yeah, so it would have had probably a big tank with a pump. But I think this bed had toolboxes on it. You can see where the outline of the rust is. I don't think this bed was on it when it was a fire truck. I think they got this bed from someplace else. But you can see where the boxes were. There's some bolt holes, and there's stripe of rust that's different. There's the tag from when it was a fire truck. You can see date of manufacture, January 80. Date. So I would say the truck was built early, and it's an early 80, so it's a, wait a minute. Let me know if you know anything about this. So it's a square headlight 80, so it should be a later 80. But yet it says here it looks like the vehicle was manufactured in 10 of 79, and then they did the conversion in 80. It looks like January of 80, but that doesn't make a whole lot of sense to me. But it is what it is, I guess. Looks like it had 750 16D and 16x6 rims. And obviously it's a dual rear tire truck. And then it confirms to all federal motor vehicle safety standards for October of 79. So that's pretty much all the decals I got on this thing. You can tell where the GVW sticker used to be here on the door jamb. Sometimes you got a sticker that goes here, but there's nothing there. But the reason I bought it is a good solid chassis. There's no frame damage, there's no rust on the frame, and the cab's kind of crusty, but the cab's there enough. It has cab mounts and stuff, so it'll stay on there. It's just superficial rust. Unlike my brown truck that had completely, intact rocker panels with no cab in between them. But it's a good solid truck. I've driven it a little bit, obviously not a whole lot because it doesn't have rear brakes. I don't like getting in traffic with only front brakes, kind of a danger. But it runs good, it shifts good, transfer case does its thing. This lockout has failed, but that's no big deal. Put a lockout in it, and that's just the general stuff it needs. So eventually we may put a cab on it, but the plan is ultimate trailer puller.